This is now our unit on contracts, which is a long unit because a lot of the questions on the CLEP exam focus on contracts issues. So I want to make sure that we cover all of it. So we're going to look first at the meaning of contract law terms, all the terminology that's used, because it's a little bit complicated. Then we're going to look at what does it take to actually form a contract? What are the elements that you would have to prove in a court of law to show we actually formed a contract? And then along with that, we'll look at the what makes somebody able to enter a contract, because there are some people, children for example, who are legally incapacitated from entering contracts. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about third-party beneficiary contracts, if two people enter a contract for the benefit of somebody else. And then we'll look at the assignment and delegation of contract rights and duties, where you say, I'll fulfill the contract, but then maybe you assign that to somebody else to do, and how that works legally. We'll look at an interesting legal provision known as the statute of frauds. It's not actually a statute, but it's a common law doctrine that says that there are certain kinds of contracts that you have to do in writing. And so we'll look at which ones those are. Then we'll look at how courts interpret contractual terms, generally speaking. What counts as a breach of contract, and what are the remedies if somebody breaches their contract? And then what are the affirmative defenses? Remember, we talked about affirmative defenses back in the prior unit. So a defendant might say, yes, I breached the contract, but I had a good reason for doing so. Or yes, I signed this contract, but it wasn't really a valid consent to the contract, et cetera. Those would be affirmative defenses, and we'll talk about those. And then we'll talk about how you discharge a contract, how you finish up a contract and either perform it or get out from under it. And then finally, we'll talk about illegal contracts and public policy concerns. There may be some contracts where the two parties agree, but the society as a whole does not think that it's a contract that should be enforced, and we'll look at what those are.